Good morning. Good morning. I am so excited to be here with you guys today. I have a special guest. The program just told me I'm on at the wrong time, but I think this is the right time. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm so excited to be here with you guys because we are talking to Mariana Lange today about moving to Mexico. So Mariana, thank you for being with us today and tell me everything. Let's start with introduce yourself.
Tell you everything. Where do you want to start? Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure, honor that you consider me for to bring some information about moving to Mexico to your audience. My name is Mariana, and I have helped people move to Mexico since 2019. We run a website called Mexico Relocation Guide that gives a lot of people information, mostly Americans and Canadians, although we have customers in Europe and all over Asia. But we give people information on how to move to Mexico the right way. And when I say the right way, there is a wrong way, and that's a very, nuanced topic. But, we cover a lot of the bureaucratic processes, which seem straightforward on paper, but then in practice are not. And then just like we stay on top of what laws are changing to give our audience and our customers the most up-to-date information, as well as, how to integrate into the country, how to be a good foreigner, how to be a good guest in Mexico, and a bunch of other fun topics on what life in Mexico is like.
Awesome. And you've been doing this since 2019. Why did you start doing this?
Well, we have a sister company called Panama Relocation Tours, which has been around since 2010, maybe a little bit longer than that. And my mother-in-law had just always been doing, relocation tours in Panama for a very long time. And her son, my husband, and I, we at one point started thinking we don't want to work forever. We want to be able to retire at some point. And, regardless of how we made pretty good money at the time, regardless of how well our income was, it's just the cost of living keeps increasing in the United States and just keeps going up and going up and going up, and not at the same rate as employment increases. So anyway, long story short, I started looking into what countries we could possibly make our savings, investments, and possibly, retire early, how long we could make our money last. And naturally, I'm from Mexico City. And naturally, I started looking into Mexico first because, that's where I'm from and I understand the culture, but I didn't understand the laws. So the more I started looking into it, specifically for Dustin, because I'm a Mexican citizen, so a lot of the things don't apply to me. But specifically for Dustin, I started looking into just what would we need to know if we wanted to maybe buy a property, or, what would he need to do to get a residency visa? And the more I started digging and searching, the more I started realizing, wow, there's really not a lot of great information. There was a couple of good, really great websites, but even the information was very vague and not very detailed. And it just left me with more questions than answers. So that's where Mexico Relocation Guide was born. And then obviously, having my mother-in-law as a mentor for Panama Relocation Tours was just obvious, a very obvious next step for me to develop Mexico Relocation Guide. So that's where it was born. And, 2019, we just started with a blog, started with articles on how to move to Mexico and the different things like how to open a bank account, what is the residency visa process like, what do people need to know, what cities do people like living in, those kinds of things. But then in 2021, we launched an online guide, which is the entire resource of how to move to Mexico into an online course that's easy to follow. So we take all the bureaucratic processes and make it easy to follow, easy to understand for somebody who wants to do it on their own. But even then, people need some help. So we give them a directory of contacts across Mexico that they can hire to help them one-on-one that we have vetted. So, it's not just anybody.
All right. I emailed my community last night to say that you were coming here, and I got such good responses.
Oh, that's awesome.
Really, people were I've been following her for years. I've gotten so much good advice from her. So it felt really nice to have this like synergy. And that's, I didn't know about your mother-in-law and the Panama relocation tours until last night.
Yeah.
Someone emailed me and said they follow you and they're going on your mother-in-law's tour. And I was like, oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
You're the person who emailed me because you told me something about my my guest today. Okay,
Awesome.
so you're from your family's from Mexico City. You have deep roots here. But moving, I made a video 2 weeks ago about why people probably shouldn't move to Mexico City right now.
Mhm.
Not really, we know there are protests happening, but not really about the protests, but about the state of the city and and climate change and how things are impacting it greatly. But between my thoughts on Mexico City and what seemed, if you look from the outside, what seemed to be every Mexican's thoughts on foreigners moving to Mexico in general, it seems
Yeah.
like it's a really controversial time to move to Mexico. So right now, your business is based on something, and part of mine too, that people are saying like the local, some of the locals are saying you shouldn't be doing this. So let's talk through that a little bit. How do you like? What are your thoughts when you see the protests in Mexico City? When you hear that foreigners are causing all of this gentrification, et cetera? Tell me what you think.
Yeah. I can't speak on behalf of all Mexicans, by the way, but I can tell you only based on my experience with my customers. I will say
Mhm.
this, most of my customers don't live in Mexico City,
Mm,
because I work with a lot of people over 50, and I feel like in that age group, they're looking for a city that's not as chaotic and
mhm,
easier to get around and like smaller. Not everybody. I do have customers who live in Mexico City, but I will say like most of them do not. Regardless, I will say that, based on, I've done hundreds of interviews with customers all over Mexico. Playa del Carmen, Puerto Vallarta. I mean, the touristy hotspots, Cabo, right? Cancun, Mexico City, obviously, Guadalajara, like the touristy hotspots. And then I've also interviewed people that live in like the lesser known towns. And I've never had anybody tell me that they have felt personally attacked or felt any sort of resentment or any sort of mistreatment from the locals. And I think a lot of it has to do with the person and how
mhm,
they treat the locals, right? And what they do on their day-to-day life. Like, do they try even to greet people in Spanish? As simple as that, just like buenos dias, hola, ¿cómo está? Get to know their neighbors. Like, do they try to integrate and learn Mexican culture and the kind of norms, right?
mhm,
The other thing is also like, I do think that while it is happening, and I'm not like denying that, the cost of living is increasing for a lot of locals, and I'm very, very aware of that and also very empathetic to it. I also think that it's kind of being blown up by the media. Uh, Maybe because, like, and I do think that it's good that the conversation is starting, because I do think that the government has to put safeguards in place so that there can be rent control and those kinds of things. And I think the conversation is good. It's headed in a good direction. I don't agree with like the vandalization of businesses and the type of like aggressiveness, right, that came out of like the first riot. I don't agree with that, because those businesses are also run by Mexicans and they employ Mexican employees. And anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But I also, we do try very, very hard on our videos, on our blog posts, on our resources to tell people what the real cost of things are, so
mhm,
that they can educate themselves as much as possible before they arrive, and know that just because they can afford a 50,000 peso rental, which is like around $2,700 at today's exchange rate, doesn't mean they should. They should really know that, like, maybe it depends on the neighborhood and the city and all that, right? Like, there are valid areas and places where that is the going rate, even for a local Mexican. It's not only Americans and Canadians that have money. There's a lot of wealthy Mexicans in Mexico too who live really well. Um, but I will say that I try to educate people on what the real cost of things is, so that they don't accidentally end up becoming part of the problem. Because most people don't want to become part of the problem. Most people come with the right intention of like, they want to integrate, they want to learn the language, they want to not overpay for things, they want to be respectful, they want to learn about the history, they want to employ, they want to join charities. Like most people come with the right heart, but
Right.
I think we just get caught up in like not knowing any better. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's just my feeling. I think most Mexicans are very welcoming as long as you are very, as long as you try really hard to become part of their culture, because we're very proud about our country. We're very proud about our culture. And we have a lot of history and it's really awesome. So we don't like it when people come and then complain about the culture and the way things are and the norms of like, even bureaucracy is frustrating. But it is what it is. That's how it's worked for years.
Right. Yeah. I on different parts of the internet, I'm seeing a lot of people from outside of Mexico saying, oh, Mexicans don't want foreigners there, or oh, it's unsafe. Oh, were you okay during the riot? And it's so interesting because like my day-to-day is not impacted at all. Right. Like, and that's to say, like, I understand why there are protests. I understand. I don't really understand burning up books at the university, but
right,
whatever. Because like, what do we get anyway? But the idea that like Mexicans don't want foreigners here is something that's being stoked by the media, right? Like the protests, if you think about the size of a city, the protests are generally small, they're concentrated. And my experience with Mexicans, I would say like 99 times out of 100 is really positive. And so even now, when this energy and this debate is happening, I never feel like I'm a burden or I'm unwanted here. I will say, and this is just a personal thing, sometimes when I'm walking, a shift for me after the protest, after the original protest, is sometimes when I'm walking through the street and people are looking at me, I'm like, is that a friendly face or not a friend? Like, is that, you know what I mean? Like, are you one of the people, one of the small percentage of people who doesn't want me here? I will say a small percentage of people at large, a large percent of the people who make comments on YouTube, a large percent of the people who claim to be Mexican who make comments on YouTube are very negative about life. Not about life, but about like
foreigners
here, etc.
coming to Mexico. Yeah.
Yes.
Particularly people with more money or higher purchasing power that, you know, they feel are the ones that are contributing to the higher cost of living.
Right. Which you don't know through a YouTube video. You're just kind of making assumptions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes when I'm walking the street, I'm like, that look, is that friendly or is that like, are you thinking about,
yeah,
here goes this foreigner, right? And I didn't ever have that consideration before, because before it was just friendly or I was blind to it. And now that's the only change for me, is me internalizing that and wondering if somebody who sees me is thinking something negative, but no one is outwardly reacting negatively to me. So
yeah. Well, I think that a lot of that has to do with you and your attitude and your willingness to accept Mexico as it is. I mean, I've watched your content for years, and I think you're very respectful and you're very like, you're a big promoter. You're like a big promoter of, you know, how Mexico has welcomed you, how it's given you a home, how like you're grateful. And I think that's a big reason why, I mean, that just comes out, like whether you speak it into, you know, everyone that you walk out by or not, that it shows. I think the typical like entitled, I will say gringo or like American, it also shows without them having to speak. There's like nonverbal cues. It shows in like, you know, maybe they're like, they visibly get frustrated when they can't get their point across, or they speak English louder, thinking that the person is going to all of a sudden understand them just because they speak louder.
Mm-hmm.
So those kinds of things, like, I think it matters on the person.
Okay. I hadn't thought about like the subliminals, but that's helpful. Let's talk about moving to Mexico. Let's start there. You sent an email 2 weeks. If you're not on her email list already, you are messing up. You are messing up. You sent an email this week, last week, this week, about minimum wage going up in January. Yeah. For the past, as long as I've been here, it's gone up every January, and about the amount that was announced. And I saw your email cut and paste and your name stripped from it. I saw it in so many places on the internet. People just like screenshot the information and left you out. And I'm like, that's Mariana's email. And like, I know I have gleaned some helpful information from you. Like, oh, this is the good thing to know, but never like, I'm going to just use her email. Like, all that to say, like, you have been such a great source of information. Let's get to the information.
Yeah, that's so awesome. That's nice.
And really to everyone. You've been a great source of information to the internet. Let's talk about moving. Okay, so minimum wage is supposed to go up next year by 12%, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for the information. Which means, do you know off the top of your head, or do you have close by the numbers that they'll need?
Yeah. So right now, minimum wage is a factor in a formula. I will give you the long answer so people understand like what this means in case anybody's new around here and they're learning about residency for the very first time. But there's a formula that the government uses in order to calculate economic solvency for people who are trying to get either temporary or permanent residency. Historically, since like forever, they have used minimum wage as part of that calculation. Back in like 2018, minimum wage was like 80 pesos a day, and now it's 280 pesos a day, which that's going to go up 12% in 2026. So if you see that, like historically over the last, 7 years, it's gone up a lot, which is great for the local Mexican economy and for the local Mexicans who are earning a lower wage, right? But for the people who are trying to get temporary or permanent residency, well, that increases the income requirements every year. It has nothing to do with the current Trump administration, has nothing to do with the Biden administration, has nothing to do with any politics around the world. It's just historically gone up every year. Now, all that being said, currently, depends on which consulate you apply in, because every consulate across the world, every Mexican consulate or embassy across the world has some level of autonomy. So they all use like variant criteria, and some will ask you for $4,000 a month in monthly income for you to apply or qualify for temporary residency. Some will require $4,400 a month. And the variance is usually because they are either taking the exchange rate at 20 pesos to $1 or they're doing it at the current exchange rate of like 18.5 at $1. It just depends on when you apply and which consulate you apply. So they have like income requirements all over the place. So if it gets up 12%, then we can expect that the income requirements will be depending on which consulate you apply in. And nothing has been published yet, by the way, until January 2026, as far as the consulates go. The minimum wage has been confirmed that it's going to go up 12%. The president has confirmed that. But the consulates don't usually post what those requirements are until the beginning or sometime in February of every year. Anyway, long story short, assuming that they will use this formula, and 12% is a new minimum wage increase, and we can expect that consulates will require about $4,400 to about $4,900 a month for temporary residency, or about $75,000 to about $85,000 in savings or investments for the last 12 months for a temporary residency. However, and I will say this with like a big parentheses, there's a thing called el Diario Oficial de la Federación, which is basically where new laws and new new rules are published for Mexico. And on Friday, they just published something. The head honcho of the person who oversees all the consulates and embassies across the world published something that said that the consulates must start using the UMAs, which are different than minimum wage. The UMA is a measure that Mexico uses for many things like credits, debts, and then, of course, for economic solvency for immigration. If they start using the UMAs, which hopefully they do in 2026, because again, the consulates do have some level of autonomy, so they can choose to maybe not respect whatever is written in the DOF. But if they do in 2026, and that would mean that the income requirements would drop from currently they're about $4,000 to $1,600 a month for a temporary residency, which is huge.
That's
It's huge. It would allow so many people to finally be able to fulfill their dream of moving to Mexico. There's so many people who would be able to live in Mexico very comfortably on their Social Security or on their pension, but they just don't meet the requirements right now. So, well, that's a developing story. Well, I'm going to start researching what the consulates start responding in the next couple of weeks and months based on that new news. And yeah, I'll report it back in a page that I have on our website that says all the requirements.
Awesome. So if they changed it to the UMA, the formula itself wouldn't change, just one of the factors in the formula?
Exactly.
Whoa.
It would still be 300 days times a UMA, which would drop it significantly. Again, it's like the difference between currently it's 4,000 to 4,400, depending on which consulate you apply in, assuming that they start applying, all the consulates start applying the same exchange rate, and they also start applying the UMA, it would be about $1,600 a month for temporary residency. The requirements for permanent are higher, but I focus so much on temporary because there's really very few people who were given permanent residency from the very beginning at a consulate. The requirements are higher. You also have to prove that you're retired, you're over 60, you're drawing a pension, or you're drawing from your Social Security. So it's a little bit harder. Temporary residency has all the same benefits as a permanent residency. The only difference is that it is temporary and you do have to renew it. But after 4 years, you can apply to become a permanent resident without having to fulfill the financial requirements again. So really, there's no problem in getting temporary residency.
Yeah, which I got my temporary residency 4 years ago when I became a permanent resident this July, June, something.
Yay!
In this June, I became a permanent resident. So I took, when I came back from, I think from Bogota, I was going through immigration and the immigration officer was like, you have permanent residency. And I started saying no, temporary, but I was like, no, I have.
I do.
Yes, permanent. Yeah.
Awesome. Congrats.
Like just that experience, I was like, yes, I forget that like I'm official now. I'm legit. All right, you said a couple of things that I want to double back on. Let me go to my notes. Oh, one of them, the first one I want to touch on. You talked about how this is just, I'm gonna just jump in with a couple of my pet peeves as we're doing this. Mariana is a classy lady. She may not do it, but I'm going to tell you my pet peeves. All the time when we see things change in Mexico, like the amount of money you need to get residency happen, so many times I hear, oh, this is a reaction to X in the US. And I want you guys to remember that Mexico is a whole country. It's a whole country with its own
sovereign,
its own rules, and not everything that happens here or around the world is in reaction to the place you live, right? Like it's not how the world works, right? Every year I see people saying, oh, the requirements have gone up. They don't want us there anymore, or they're going out of their way to make it hard for us to get here. And I'm like, no, they raised minimum wage. Like nothing changed, but they raised minimum wage. And raising minimum wage was not about you, right? Like it's not, we got to be real about this. It's not about you. So yes, things happen in Mexico in reaction to what's happening in the world. But I would say that like 95% of the things happening in Mexico or more are not, right? Like it's just not about Trump or Biden or anything else. It's just the way things are going. But let's talk about something that I think is a reaction to Trump.
Okay.
You said earlier that it's unfair to say it's a reaction to Trump, but I'm gonna stick with that for now.
Okay.
You said earlier that people can qualify with their savings or investments. I'm hearing from so many people now that in different ways, getting residency is harder. And one of the ways I heard recently someone experienced was that they had their money in investments and they were like, no, all of what you need to qualify needs to be in a savings account, right?
Mm.
Which most people aren't walking around with $80,000 in a savings account. And for a lot of people, liquidating their investments is not what they want to do, right? Like that wasn't on their roadmap. I do sense that it is individual consulates are making the road a little bit trickier than it used to be. I don't know if I suspect it is a reaction to the complaints about gentrification, the number of people coming down, and the way Mexicans are the immigration processes in America right now aren't favorable. And so I suspect individuals because the individuals have a lot of power in these consulates, it seems like. It seems like individuals it may not be like, I'm out to get you, but it may be like within the rules that I am allowed to enforce. I just made this one a little tiny bit, I tweaked it a bit, right? And I'm hearing, are you hearing that too, that people are having a harder time with the same than they would have had 2 years ago?
The thing is, like, yes, but I also hear about a bunch of people who also successfully apply for and get permanent residency or temporary residency based on their savings in investment accounts. 401ks, brokerage accounts, 403bs. For Canada, it's the I always forget the name and I don't want to say it wrong, but it's basically the Canadian state pension. So yes, I have heard from people who say like, oh, I took my investment from Schwab or from, Fidelity. I took like my brokerage account. I showed that I have more than enough in investments, but they wanted me to show that I'm actually pulling money out and that I'm living on that money because, otherwise it's not really like my money. So I have heard those stories, but I've also heard significant amount of people who actually apply and are successfully given their residency visas based on having 401ks or investments and not using any other type of income to be able to apply and therefore get qualified or approved. So I think that we will always hear like the not successful stories, but and behind that, there's like a plethora of people who have actually applied for and been successful. And the thing is, we don't know. I don't know what they brought to the consulate. Maybe it wasn't the right type of documentation. Maybe they didn't come really prepared. Maybe they said something to the consulate or to the consul that had nothing to do with their investments, but maybe rubbed them the wrong way. And therefore, they do have the authority or the final say to say, I'm not going to grant you residency. So it's kind of hard to know because without actually taking those people's documents and checking what they are doing and what they are bringing to the consulate, it's hard. You're just hearing one side of the story, in other words. And I work with 40 different facilitators across the country who give me stories all the time and tell me, give me feedback all the time on customers that without disclosing any personal information, but just like kind of the state of the union, if you must. And I have seen overwhelmingly that people are still able to use investments and savings. But I do hear those stories from time to time. So
I totally know people are still getting approved. I'm just, as I've been paying attention to the residency process. So back in 2019, I think is when I started. I'm hearing more and more hurdles that you don't see on paper. Like when I showed up to get my residency, even though it wasn't part of the rules anywhere in 2020, the guy in Miami who was very not nice,
Oh,
an unpleasant man.
I'm sorry.
It is what it is. Was like, you're not old enough to retire, so you're not going to get permanent residency. Even though I like on paper, following all the rules, I qualified. So it was kind of like,
which is not written anywhere, by the way. Like at the time, it wasn't written anywhere. Now they've started writing that into the requirement.
It was not written anywhere. It was not one of the rules, but he was like, no, I'll give you temporary or nothing. What would you like? And I was like, well, okay, right. But what I want people to know is that just because you don't see it on paper does not mean it's not going to apply to you. So it's really important to get in community, to get advice, to be in the Facebook groups where people are talking about specific consulates and maybe even specific people at specific consulates. So you have an idea of what you may experience, because every consulate is going to do their own thing. It's the joy, right? Like that's just something. You can go in and say that's not what the rules say, but nobody cares.
Again, there's like what's written in the law and then the actual practice,
right,
in real life of the law, and it does vary from person to person at the consulate. It varies from consulate to consulate. It varies from like Monday to Wednesday. So everybody can have a different experience. I will say this, just like a kind of an asterisk to that about the Facebook groups. Please be mindful that whatever somebody did last year might not apply today. So if somebody's sharing their story and they're like, oh, no problem, I did this and I didn't have to bring an apostilled marriage certificate and you'll be fine. Maybe they applied last year, or maybe they applied last month, or whatever. The person that took their application didn't apply certain requirements or criteria. Doesn't mean that for you, that will always be the case too. So
I think so. That's something that I see in Facebook groups that actually annoys me. When someone comes in and they're like, I am concerned about X. And someone is like, oh, that's not going to be a problem. I didn't have to do anything with that. And it was like, you're a different human.
Yeah.
You have a different set of circumstances and you've had your residency for a year. Like maybe
that's great, it worked out for you. It doesn't mean it's going to be the same.
Right. You got it at a different consulate. You saw a different person. It could be a new, like, this is like minimizing those, like, I'm concerned because I've heard this based on old experiences is a really bad habit I see. So yes, I would say be in community, but don't rely solely on the community to give you all the information. And when you're looking at the information, you want to look at the specific consulate they went to and the method they used to apply, right? So like Kat Dawkins says, I'm 62 and was denied at Raleigh Consulate. The rep said the agent was 65. My facilitator told me it was 60. Whatever the rep says, that even if he said 60 the next day, it does not matter, right? Whatever the rep said to you that day is the only thing that matters. But what I would say is if I was in that situation, if I saw this comment, I might be at a Facebook group and ask, if someone said they got approved in Raleigh, I might ask them, did the rep say anything to you about the age limit? Like if it happened like recently, not 3 months ago, right? So you really want, if you're on the cusp of something, you might want to dig into the information you can find. But like I said, don't rely on other consulates. Don't, like Mariana said, don't rely on old information because it's not relevant. It's not relevant to your experience that day. Lady Stevie said the laws seem to be changing. Nothing's changing in the laws. That's the joy of this process. Nothing's changing in this law. It's just, Mariana said, the practice and how things are applied.
Yeah, and I do think I want to like mention, yes, I have seen a change in the strictness of the requirements from 2019 to now 2025. I have seen more like requirements being imposed on clients. Like, for example, I'm hearing now that some consulates require people to have previously visited Mexico before they will approve them. I personally don't think that's a terrible thing. I think if you're going to be you're asking for residency in a different country, I think it's okay for that country to ask why you want to go and live there if you've never visited before. I mean, it's not up to me, right? At the end of the day, like if they require that, they require that. I can disagree or agree with it all I want. But I do sometimes agree with some of the requirements that they impose. Sometimes I don't. Like, for example, asking people to bring a marriage certificate apostilled in a consulate of the country where that marriage took place. So they should be able to like authenticate and certify that this is not a fake marriage certificate. But whatever, it's their process, it's their requirements. I think you should always come over prepared and hope for the best. If they are asking you for the list of requirements, or for example, a lot of people always ask me, should I cross out all my banking information, my routing number, my account number, like all sensitive personal data to apply? Do not redact anything. Do not cross out anything. That is a way for them to say, well, I can't verify that this is not like, a fake document, or like I can't verify then that this is an authentic document. Therefore, come back when you have an authentic document. They might not deny you flat out, but tell you to come back. So do not redact numbers. Do not redact personal information. You are dealing with a consulate who is going to safeguard your personal information. So don't be so worried about that. The other thing is like, if they ask you for bank statements for the last 12 months and you have like 4 pages per statement, print out every single page. It's better to come over prepared, and hopefully you don't need those extra 3 pages, but only the last page, than for them to say, well, where's the rest of this statement, right? If they can see it's page 1 out of 4 and you only have 1, and where's the other 3? So things like that. I'd say like it's okay to walk into your consulate appointment with like a stack of papers, and hopefully you come over prepared, especially if you're traveling out of town to go apply somewhere else. I think that then it's especially important for you to come over prepared.
I think my paper stack was like this big when
Yeah.
I showed up at the consulate. I didn't redact anything, because if y'all gonna steal my money, steal it. Like whatever. Like at the end of the day, these documents are being given to people who see hundreds of people's information a week. There's no reason to believe that they're running a fraud ring and that like I'm being targeted, right? Like I'm not saying that nothing bad ever happens, right? I'm just saying that like I was like, here you go. What do you want? But yeah, so yeah, and CC says get bank statement stamped by the bank. I didn't have to do that. Some consulates now will not require it. Some consulates will require it, or getting them signed or something. That is something.
I recommend getting them signed regardless of whether you're going to one that requires it or not. Yeah, just in case they want that last piece of information.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to right now drop the link for the Mexico relocation guide. Boop, 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 boop. I can spell.
I can also give your audience a coupon.
Ooh.
So I can give your audience 10% off if they want to use, if you use Sheeta's link, which I'm sure she'll share right now. But if you guys want to use her link, which please use her link, if you use coupon code WOW10 MRG at checkout, you'll get 10% off.
Okay, coupon code.
I can put it in the chat too if you want.
Wow. There you go. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. I know how to do 2 things at once. All right, coupon code from guide. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure my audience will really appreciate it. And people are in the comments saying they love the guide. So yay.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Okay, so people are moving here. It may be harder for you than it was for me 4 years ago for a variety of reasons, most of which are not political, right? Like there may be some, right? Because people, like, I always try to tell people that when you show up at the consulate, like, yes, it's a government office, but you are dealing with a human, right?
Mm-hmm.
A human having a bad day, a human who could not like your face. You could remind them of an ex from the past, or their first teacher who failed them, right? Like it's funny. Dealing with a human. Mm-hmm. And so there's no science to it, right? Like there is if you see the checklist on the consulate's website, bring everything on the checklist, right? Like that's as far as science goes, and ask questions ahead of time. That's as good as you can do. The rest of it is like, what happens when you walk in that day? And I hear people say things like about a number of things, like it's not fair. And I think I first noticed people saying that when when Mexico back in 2020, 2021, when they shut down, they stopped giving 180-day visas automatically. A lot of the snowbirds were like, that's not fair. I've been coming here for 20 years. And another pet peeve of mine, and I bring so much money into the economy.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't they want us here? We have the money.
Yeah.
Why would they do this? This isn't smart. And I'm like, it's a whole government. Like if the money you were bringing in was so important to them, they would not be doing this. You're less important than you think, right? Like it's a whole government with a lot of rules, a lot of things to work through. The number of days they give you at the airport is not their economy is not dependent on the number of days you get when you come in.
Totally. Yeah.
So changes like that happening over time are like I said, when I started hearing that's not fair, and I hear people say that now when they go to a consulate and we don't get the result they want. And honestly, it might not be. The day you get there, you may not have gotten the same treatment that someone ahead of you got or someone in a different consulate got, but there's absolutely nothing you can, like there's no appeals process as far as I know, right, Mariana? There's no appeals, right?
You can go apply at a different consulate that same day.
Yeah.
You can go apply at maybe even that consulate a few weeks later. Like, there's not like you're not like put into a system that says you were denied and therefore you can't apply later. There's nothing like that. So you can go apply at a different consulate the following day, or you can just give it a couple of weeks. I've had people give it a couple of weeks and they go apply at the same consulate, they got approved the next time. Or maybe they tell you that you were missing a specific piece of information that's key to your approval, and they'll have you come back and present that piece of information.
Terry Ann Bartley, great question, but I want to talk about a larger part of this. Terry Ann Bartley asks, can I get temporary residence if I'm still living and working in the US? I would say it depends. What do you say, Mariana?
I used to tell people you should absolutely apply while you still have a job, because especially if you're going to be using your current income to qualify. If you no longer have that job, it's very hard to then prove that you have that income to be able to qualify. However, I know that some consulates will require a letter from your employer stating that you need to have, they will give you permission to continue working at that company, or that you will continue having that employment once you move to Mexico, which can be hard for some people because they don't plan to work there anymore. So maybe you need to go the savings or investments route. But yeah, I used to that was just kind of my mantra. Like, if you're still working and you're planning to qualify based on employment, you should totally apply while you're still employed. So I would say it depends on the consulate.
Yeah. So Glass Half Full applied in Seattle, and they asked her to bring a letter saying that they continued to employ her while she's in Mexico, and the Boise consulate did not. I remember back in 2020, so 2021, I believe, someone I know went to Boston, and back in 2021, Boston asked for a letter saying that the employer will continue to employ them the entire time they're in Mexico. And I think that requirement is so interesting, because everybody in America knows nobody guarantees employment, right? Like, there's no guarantee of employment. And so when I first heard that requirement, she was like, I can't get that. And I was like, yeah, no, but like, probably the only people who can get that are people who like work for their cousin, right? Or like have their own business, and they're just signing their name, right? Like, it's because that's a guarantee of employment, and no U.S. employer is gonna do that, right? And so I think it's interesting. If you can get it, yay. If not, try to avoid the consulates that require it.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Go to a different consulate. But I will also say if they don't require it, I would keep that employment and apply while you're still employed. And by the way, you can apply years before you actually plan on moving to Mexico. Most people do, especially because the requirements tend to go up. It's assuming that they don't apply the UMAs or the UMA next year, assuming that the consulates decide to continue using minimum wage and that it increases next year. And for those people who like might not qualify next year, I would say definitely apply while you still qualify. And two, if employment is a way that you're applying, do it while you're still employed.
Definitely. Adelia applied in Houston on Tuesday and then in New Orleans on a Wednesday the same week.
Yeah, perfect example.
Perfect example. I think she realized when she was in Houston, she realized that the interview was not going her way. So I remember correctly, she just took her papers back from the person. It was like, thank you. So she didn't even get denied. She was just like, we're done here.
Interesting. Okay.
Thank you very much. I'll take those back. Bye-bye. And then
very interesting.
That is, that is an approach. I will say that my interview did not go well. I left there like some people are like, and then the employee told me that I was going to be approved and I could come back in hours from it. No, my guy was like, come back in hours and we'll tell you whether you got it or not.
Oh, that's nerve-wracking.
Okay. So that is, just because your interview is not going well doesn't mean you're going to be declined. But if you're like, even if you get declined, you can go somewhere else. Adelia didn't have to take her papers back. But then again, she didn't have to reprint the same thing to go to New Orleans. So I would say, like, you never know what's going to happen when you go to a consulate, and that's something you have to keep in mind. Yeah. I'm going to get through some of these questions. Really, I
will say there is a lot of value in hiring a facilitator too, who deals with all kinds of consulates on a regular basis. For people who cannot afford to be like applying at one place versus another versus traveling to that's awesome that she was able to travel from Houston to New Orleans. Some people might not be able to, it's a one and done deal for them, right? Especially if they have to travel from where they are to another consulate, they can't be traveling all over the country. So a facilitator who knows, not all of them are the same. Some do more hand-holding than others, and some have a deeper level of working with different consulates. But the ones that do will understand based on your specific criteria and the type of documents you have, your employment history, your maybe savings history, however it is that you're applying can really prepare you to give you the highest chance of being approved on the spot. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, there's 3 or 4 facilitators that I constantly recommend that do this level of handholding, who have a very, very low rate that their customers don't get approved.
Oh, nice.
So they really prepare them beforehand.
Yeah, I think that there are people whose application, you look at your application, you're like, I'm gonna get it. I feel really confident, whatever. But I think that if you're on the border and it's important to you, you should definitely get someone who can guide you through the process. A lot of these things can be done yourself, but sometimes it's just worth some of it is just worth paying for, right? The knowledge of which consulate, if this is my situation, which consulate would be best for me to apply at that I can actually get into is something a facilitator would know. And I'm in groups about Mexican residency every day, and I don't know. Right. But I don't work in it all the time.
Sure.
Right. A facilitator can help you with that and get it done the first time, hopefully. Whereas it might take you a few times.
Exactly, okay. Yeah. You do not have to hire anybody, by the way. You can absolutely do it on your own. The process costs $54, whether you get approved or denied at the consulate. And then there's immigration fees to finish that process in Mexico, plus travel fees. But you do not have to hire anybody. You don't have to hire a Mexico relocation guide either. You can absolutely find this information online. Mm-hmm. The value in the relocation guide is that we put it all together for you in an easy to follow spot where you don't have to decipher whether, you're getting information from 5 years ago or last year or what's accurate, what isn't accurate. Like we will keep everything up to date for you in an easy to follow format. So, but you absolutely don't need to hire somebody. You can do this on your own. It's just, what is your time worth to you?
Right. Lady Sarita says to hit the like button. So hit the like button.
Yeah, hit the like button. Subscribe to Sheeta's channel if you haven't already. But yeah, hit the like button.
And Mariana's channel is linked in the description. So all of these things, if you're not subscribed to her already and you're seriously considering Mexico, you should be, because she's got the best info out there. I have vibes and opinions. She has facts and relevant data. Right? Like, hello. But I'm gonna go through some of these questions so we can get to what you want to know. First one I think is relevant to what we're just talking about. Is it worth getting the guide now if I'm not relocating for another 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, I have customers who buy it years before they actually move, because I mean it's bulky. Like, it has a lot of information, so you can go through it on your own time. I have a section that tells you what's been updated recently. So if you want to just go through that and see like the most recent updates. But I can give you guys like a brief overview of what it looks like on the back end. I don't want to spend too much time of your like live stream doing that. But anyway, yeah, people buy it years before they actually move. And then some people buy it months before they move. It just depends on how much of a researcher you are.
Right. And remember what Mariana said, and what I completely agree with, that even if you're not relocating for a few years, this might not be a bad time to apply for residency if you apply currently, because next year the numbers are either going up or going down. And we don't know. We don't know. And by the time we know, because we know Mexican bureaucracy can take some time. It's a big ship. It's hard to move things. It may be too late to get an appointment for the year where you want to go, because
yes,
offices are closed in December. What are you talking about? It's Christmas, right? What do you think Christmas starts in the consulates? I feel like it's December 1st. What about you?
Usually middle of December is when they stop. Yeah, when they stop taking appointments for visas. Although last year they kind of surprised all of us, and they started taking appointments like even after Christmas until New Year. So they were really nice last year.
Okay. So yeah,
but there's a lot of Mexicans applying for passports right now, and I want to reiterate that the Mexican consulates are there for Mexicans first. Mm-hmm. The residency visas are like a second priority. So Mexicans are 100% the first priority of helping them either register children born in the United States or Canada to Mexican parents, and then giving them dual citizenship. So that's like one of their biggest priorities. Also passports, the matrícula consular, which is basically like a Mexican ID in a foreign country. They can also process your INE, which is your like voter card in Mexico, but in a foreign country. So they're primarily there for Mexicans first. Mm-hmm. And right now there's a lot of Mexicans applying for passports who are self-deporting. Mm-hmm. So they may not have as many appointments available for residency visas because there's only so many consulate employees, and they're focusing a lot of their priority on Mexicans, right, who need them. So that's also why you may not see a lot of appointments at the various consulates for months.
Yeah. I did hear that earlier this year, but someone was told at a consulate that they're just not doing any. I can't remember what consulate it was, though. We're not doing any applications right now because they have a higher number of Mexicans to support. And that's just how it goes. I hope you can go to another city, right? Like there's no.
Yeah. Go to another consulate, especially like, California right now is like fully saturated. Mm-hmm. Like these cities where there's a lot of Mexican nationals, like Miami, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you can apply for an application, but if you don't, that's another thing. I know that the appointment process is not easy.
No, not easy at all.
It's not easy for most people, and that might be a reason to like get some help from a facilitator who knows the process a little better than you do, because I see people online flipping out about the appointment system all the time, and I'm like, it is It's what it is, right? Like you can't, being upset about it isn't going to change the process. You're just upset.
And it also varies by consulate. So not all consulates use the same appointment system, which just adds to the frustration. But yeah, a facilitator can help you make an appointment. We also give you the steps in the online guide if you want to do it yourself. But yeah.
Awesome.
I see a comment saying Claudia's sick of us.
Not really. I would say the people at the consulates might be sick of y'all, but I think
if anybody sticks up for foreigners more than anybody, it's Claudia Sheinbaum.
Yes.
She sticks up for foreigners so much.
Candace said Sacramento is impossible to get into. That would make sense. Yes.
Yeah.
Probably getting a lot of people from the farm region going there.
California is a hard one to deal with right now.
And Mrs. Robinson says she was able to use the guide 2 years ago, but just made the move last week. So that's amazing.
Nice, Miss Robinson. I love your handle name.
Congratulations. All right. Let's get back to some of the other questions. All right. T. Gaynor Jennings says, family unity. I've spoke to one convincing facilitator I was vetting and was specifically told I had to wait 20 days after completing my CONHE process, then I could file for family unity. Do you have any?
Yeah, it might have been that because currently for you to finish your CONHE process, it's taking about 20 days. Depends on what level of documentation that immigration officer going to needs. But assuming that it's one of the, more stricter immigration offices in Mexico that do require some level of like authentication of documents to be sent to Mexico City and then back to them. For some people, the CONHE can take up to 20 business days. Not always, but same day processing is not a given. And you cannot apply for your dependents until you have your residency card. So that might be the reason why that facilitator is telling you that you have to wait 20 full business days. It might not happen. You might not actually have to wait 20 full business days. But I would say if that facilitator is a reputable facilitator in that city, they know the process for that city, and they're probably just giving you the right expectations so that you can come with the right flexibility to do your CONHE.
Right. That's a good point. I didn't realize you had to have your card before you thingy. That makes sense. Okay. Let's see. We did this one. If the UMA is implemented, will it be universally adopted or will it be consulate by consulate?
Tiana, if it were up to me, it would be absolutely universally implemented. I mean, if it were up to me, they would implement it tomorrow, which is, when they're supposed to. We will have to wait and see. Hopefully it's universally implemented. And hopefully every consulate uses the same exchange rate and we can just get some uniformity around this madness.
No, that's not going to happen. Like every consulate, it's just, I feel like it's part of the experience.
Yeah.
What is it for you use? How much? Okay, sure.
That's a good point you bring up. If you are able to walk away from the first, your first experience with Mexican bureaucracy, which for most people it's residency visa, if you're able to walk away with a smile, Mexico will be the right place for you. But if you get crazy frustrated, you're hitting your head against the wall, you cannot stand the rhyme or reasons they do things a certain way, Mexico will be a hard place.
I saw a post the other day from someone who was like, I've lived in Mexico, I want to say for 16, a large number of years, 16 years.
Yeah.
And I had the most frustrating experience I've ever had the other day. And I was like, in 16 years, you're finally this must be really good, because there's so much that if you're dealing with bureaucracy, if you're not fluent in Spanish, it's going to test you, right? That's just something you have to accept if you want to live in Mexico, right? You have to accept that the less English you have, the less Spanish you have, the harder it's going to be for a lot of things. You're going to accept that you're going to need help for some of these things or not even I didn't need help going from temporary to permanent, but I paid for help because I don't want to do it. I don't want to.
Yeah, you value your time.
I value I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, if the consulate process, if you're like, this is terrible, I hated this, I never want to do anything like this again, you're in for a big surprise when you get to the country, because you'll see it again. The best bureaucratic experience I've had here was getting a driver's license.
Oh yeah, that one was fairly easy.
Super easy. I showed up.
Did you get the permanent one where you don't have to renew it?
No, because I got it 3 or 4 years ago, but I'm going to get the permanent one before the year is over.
Good for you. Yeah.
I think I have until September.
Get that out of the way, never have to renew it again.
Yeah. I don't really understand permanent driver's license because things change, but
totally. I don't either, but hey, if they're offering it, get it.
I'll take it. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I want to ask, we're going to talk about actually living in Mexico. We're going to move on past consulates and applications in a minute, but I want to ask some of these questions first. This first one is a good one because of how Mariana is going to answer it. I already know. Which consulate in what state is best to try for permanent residency for the first time?
I mean, I have heard people have a good experience at the DC consulate if you actually qualify and you come well prepared and you can show that, you are actually retired and that you're drawing from your either Social Security or pension or your 401k or whatever it is that you're using as a means to sustain yourself in Mexico. But I will say that, the best consulate just depends on what documents you have and what their requirements are. If those two align and you're well prepared, then really any consulate should be good for you. But if you don't get permanent residency, again, that is okay. Don't feel like defeated or like you didn't win. Going from temporary to permanent is not hard. So just know that temporary is still, you get as many benefits as you would permanent, minus the fact that you have to renew, and permanent is indefinite.
I want to add to that. If you qualify at the local consulate, go to the local consulate, right? If you can't get into the local consulate for months, try to go somewhere else. But keep in mind that there are a number of consulates that won't take people from out of town, right? Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if that number got larger as the consulates get busier, right? They have people, they need to service Mexicans. They need to service the people locally in their consulate area. So if you're not either one of those, you're an extra human that they're not really responsible for. So I'm not saying don't try to get an appointment there. I'm saying understand if a consulate that you might be able to get into now, you may not be able to get into 6 months from now, right? It's just what it is. I would have said that I don't think there's a best, because it's going to depend on your situation. It's going to depend on who's working that day. But I do hear good things about DC. If you can get an appointment, which I often hear is hard.
You can get an appointment.
And Philly. I hear good things about Philly. I don't know about for permanent residency versus temporary, but I do hear good things about the process in Philly, which could change any time because that's the way the world goes.
Maybe with the UMAS, maybe they do lower the income requirements, but they get such an influx of people applying that there's no appointments for like a year. So, these things can have pros and cons.
Yes. And that is actually a really great point. If they lower it down to 1,600, you're going to be in a long line, a very long line. Okay, let's see. Someone says courtesy goes a long way. Yep. I'm having issues getting signed letters that verify the account balances. Any guidance on that?
Yeah, that is a common concern for a lot of people. And what I tell them is push to get signed letters from your bank. A lot of people might not have a traditional bank. Like they might have, again, one of these like brokerages that only have an online presence. I mean, they might have some physical locations, but no one near you. So I have had clients who push to get those things signed, and then, a representative will eventually sign it for them. So try to run it up the ladder, try to escalate it to somebody else who might be able to help you. If for whatever reason that fails, I have also had clients who go and get them notarized at, their local post office, and then you have to have a witness. And then just having something signed that says, that they have like witnessed with you that these are authentic documents. The other option is if you have a financial planner or financial advisor, if they sign it for you with their letterhead, sometimes the consulates find that to be acceptable. It depends on the consulate though. So some are very strict about having them absolutely signed by the financial institution for which you are holding those documents from. If that's the case, then really push that financial institution to sign them for you. And if not, then, you can resort to one of these other things, and hopefully that works for you.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you. Does the relocation guide have resources to help you with your transition once you've moved to Mexico?
Yeah, tons of them. We have moving companies to help you move your household goods, moving companies that help you move your car, your pets, or either one of those. People who help you get a driver's license, people who can help you open up a bank account, people who can help you get an RFC, immigration facilitators, obviously, who can help you with your residency visa process, plus other things like getting a work permit, petitioning family members, helping you with a renewal, helping you with a change of address, or maybe a change in marital status, or whatever change that needs to be reflected on your residency visa. We have relocation tour guides who can show you a specific city, show you around, show you what living there is like, without the awkward, sales pitch of having to buy a timeshare. So these are not timeshare relocation tours. In fact, most of the relocation tour guides that we have are not realtors. So they have no reason to try to sell you real estate or show you one neighborhood versus another. It's really just based on what your lifestyle is like. So yeah, those are some of the ones that come top of mind. There's other contacts, like we have real estate attorneys. We have realtors across the country that can show you rentals. So I focus a lot on rentals and not purchases, not home sales or home purchases, because I just feel that people are better off renting, especially if you've never lived in Mexico before. I really recommend that you rent for at least 6 months, if not a year. So the real estate contacts that we have in the guide have rentals, not only home sales, because you'll find in Mexico a lot of realtors focus on only selling homes. So it's hard to find the ones that also have an inventory of rentals. But in the guide, we give you people who have inventory of rentals. Yeah, those are some of the ones that come top of mind. And there's other contacts in the guide that help you with transporting your goods from San Miguel de Allende to maybe you want to move to Puerto Vallarta, or, so national moving companies and private drivers and those kinds of things.
Okay. Thank you. That was really helpful. You just said something that I wanted to touch on. What was it? Private drivers, rentals.
Tour guides?
No, it was something else. Maybe my brain is a perimenopausal sieve. Everything just
Oh my God, me too.
it just comes in and falls out. I don't know what I was thinking.
Me too. Magnesium. I've really, really found it helps.
Okay. I try it to help with sleep, but I haven't tried okay.
I'm not a doctor, so but it's helped me.
Perfect. Let's talk about living in Mexico. Oh, that's what it was. Not Agami. They know me. My people know me. Not buying real estate. That's what I wanted to talk about. Thank you.
They do know you. I love it.
Me. So many people enter Mexico or they're moved to any other country and treat it like they're picking up their old life and everything they know and just plopping it down somewhere else. And so since owning real estate is important in America, it's going to be important to them in Mexico.
Sure.
And you may not be making a great decision. Right? Like in some places, okay. I talk to people in Mexico City who are like, I want to buy. And I'm like, please, please stop. Because there's not that there's shame in renting in America, but it's not like
There's pride in owning.
there's pride in owning.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's there may be pride in owning in Mexico, but like the majority, I would say the majority of people here rent. Isn't that right? In Mexico? Or do you think
There's
it's
like
a
a 50-50 ownership, 50% ownership versus renting. I think the younger generation is less able to purchase homes, kind of like everywhere in the world.
Right.
So, it's the older generations that own their homes in Mexico. But yeah, there's a lot of rentals.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with renting, right? Especially
Not at all.
like buying a property in a place where you don't understand the real estate market and the customs and the pitfalls is really dangerous. Like unless you have an unlimited supply of money,
Yeah.
it's really dangerous
Yeah.
to do that, right? If you need your money at some point, it can be a problem, right? So,
yeah, I mean, the laws are different, and your rights as a foreigner are different than even a citizen. And even for citizens, there's a risk. For starters, there's no title insurance. So even though somebody can do the due diligence for you, like a notario or a real estate attorney who can check that the title or the escritura has no liens or isn't caught in a conflict or isn't in the middle of a lawsuit, there can still be risk, even if that is a case. So, or that is not a ejido land or farmland communal land that cannot be sold, or those people are supposed to do those checks for you, right? Work on your behalf to do those things for you. But even then there's risk. So even if you do all the things the right way, there's still risk. And I try to minimize, at least tell people the realities of the risk for them to then, if they are going to buy property, know what the risks are.
Right. That's a good point. Okay, let's talk about life in Mexico. You spent a lot of time in Mexico City, right?
Yes.
Outside of Mexico City, what's your favorite place in Mexico?
I get asked this all the time.
Okay.
It's so hard. It changes. It changes all the time. I used to be like, oh, one day I'm going to live in Querétaro. Like, I know it. I'm just going to live in Querétaro one day. And now recently I'm like, not so much. I'm going to live in a coastal town one day. Maybe it's going to be La Paz, or maybe it's going to be, I don't know that I would ever live in Puerto Vallarta, to be really honest. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It has some amazing restaurants and really nice infrastructure. It's got a really cool international airport that has a lot of direct flights to and from the United States and Canada, other parts, but it's not for me. And for some people it is, and that's great. But it changes all the time. I really, really like Puebla. I think it's kind of like an undiscovered, really nice gem. But it also has ash from the volcano. So a lot of people with allergies might suffer from that from time to time, because there's a very active volcano in the central of Mexico, the Popo. And it's very close to Puebla. And so from time to time, Puebla does have a lot of ash. And also it gets earthquakes. So it gets more seismic activity than other cities in Mexico. Usually they're very small and you won't feel them, but for some people that freaks them out. But I love Puebla. I think it's it has great food. It has really nice history. It has really nice museums. It has really pretty buildings. So yeah, it changes all the time. Yeah, I also really like San Miguel de Allende. I think I can see why people love living there.
Our secret, don't tell anybody else.
Okay.
It used to be my favorite small town. I like it less now than I used to 5 years ago.
Why?
I don't love some of the interactions I see between foreigners and locals, and it's because the population is smaller.
It's more noticeable.
It doesn't feel good in my spirit.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
Yeah. I was staying there a couple weeks ago, and I walked past a restaurant, and every single person sitting to eat was a white foreigner, and every person working was a Mexican. And I was like, does nobody else, like, can y'all not, like, when you guys, when the last person walked in, were you not like,
something's awkward here, something's backward?
Like, I'm looking for the places where the Mexicans are eating. Like, where y'all going? What's going on? Right? Like, I want to follow you to where you're eating. But the fact that, like, this place, and every seat was taken. And it just, the optics of it were kind of gross. And I was like, this is not how I want to feel in the place that I live, where I'm walking past a place and I'm like, ew.
But was that the city center? Was that
it was out on Salida de Celaya. It was out a little way. It wasn't in the city center. But typically, because I come a couple times a year, I'm mostly in the city center when I come. Sure. And so I know it's worse there, right? Like, I know this is like, I am in the tourist place. So I am one of the tourists. Yeah. But it didn't feel like, when I first started going there in 2018, 2019, it felt more like a place where Mexicans were going to vacation. And not that it's not that now, but the mix is different. I understand when people live there. Like I said, it's still like, I love that place. Of all the places in Mexico, yes, I would consider living there. I get it. For me, sometimes the vibes are not for me.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. My family vacations there a lot. So that's, I guess, like, the reason why I understand why people really love it. Mm-hmm. It's charming. It's like, really, it's so quaint. It's so nice. It's so different. But if you go down to, like, maybe 2 hours away to Guanajuato, it's kind of like that San Miguel de Allende that you're thinking of like 2019, right? A little bigger.
Yeah.
A little less like narrow streets, and less like, although there is a lot of that too, but just feels maybe a bit more like more of like that. And I hate saying authentic, because it's still Mexico. So, like, it's 100% still authentic. San Miguel de Allende is. It's still 100% Mexico. But yeah, I think maybe some people would be interested in Guanajuato for the people that are looking kind of like for that San Miguel de Allende vibe, without it being legitimately San Miguel de Allende.
But, like, this is not me saying don't move there or don't live there, because, like I said, I love it there. And I think that if I lived there, my experiences would be different, right? I would be more in the community that I am when I'm a visitor. And so keep that in mind.
But just at a first glance, that's not your vibe. Yeah.
It's still so vibey, but every once in a while I'm like, ew. I'll turn a corner and be like, oh, or like the loud American. Here goes the, right? Like,
oh yeah, that's where you see it. That's kind of like the difference between Ajijic and Chapala. So a lot of people think that they want to live in Ajijic, and then they get there and they're like, oh, that's not really my vibe. And then they discovered Chapala, which is like 10 minutes down the street. And they're like, oh, I really like Chapala. Like, that's more my vibe. That's like, it feels less like the United States 2.0 and more like I'm living in Mexico.
Okay. Yeah. Someone said something that I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah. D from Brown Girl lives there too. She says, too many people have found out and are overrunning the place. San Miguel de Allende has been on the top of like best city or best town in the world for like 20 years. It makes every year. So it's like people have always known about it. I think Mexico is becoming more accessible / attractive to people. And so more people are going to the place on the list, or more people are realizing they don't have to retire where they thought they were going to retire. And so now they're exploring other places. But yeah, it's definitely on the list of places I love, but I don't know that I could live there.
Yeah. I don't know. Atlisco is also a really, really nice town. like
Mhm.
small town that's also next to a really big city, aka Puebla.
Which city
And
did you
I
say?
think, huh?
What city did you say?
Atlisco, A
Atlisco?
T ATLIXCO.
Okay.
And it's also very affordable. It's charming. You can walk everywhere. So people are really starting to discover little towns like that are close to like a big city, kind of like San Miguel de Allende is close to Querétaro.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the reason I also think San Miguel de Allende hasn't. I know it feels like it's overrun, but it hasn't truly blown up because it doesn't have a direct airport, which I know they're thinking about building one now. So Atlisco, same thing, doesn't have a direct airport, so you'd have to fly into Puebla and then drive to Atlisco. Same thing with Ajijic in the Lake Chapala area, it doesn't have an airport, so you have to fly to Guadalajara and then drive to Lake Chapala, which is an hour away. So I think people who are looking for that like less chaotic vibe of a town find these small towns really are their jam.
Mhm.
But they still have the convenience of a really large city not too far away where they can go to like, a really good medical facility, find a really good specialist, get a direct flight in and out of wherever they come from, or have family come visit them easily. So if you're looking for those kinds of towns, maybe look for like the large cities and what's surrounding them.
I really like Puebla. I had never considered like living there, but I do like it. But I am looking for the vibe. Not that San Miguel de Allende is not authentic, but I'm looking for, 'cause I think that's an interesting thing as well, and we'll get to that in a second. But
Yeah.
I am looking for a spot that feels like a place where Mexicans go to vacation, right?
Yeah.
That's the main thing that happens there. So I'll check out Atlisco and see what those vibes are. I did a video a long time ago of me just walking down. It's literally video, no edits, no cuts, just me filming myself walking down, I think, Horacio in Polanco.
Okay.
And someone commented, "That's not the real Mexico. You're lying to everyone." And I was like,
Yeah.
edits and no cuts. What's the law? Like, I did not say this is what all of Mexico looks like. I said I'm walking this street. But the idea that people have this idea of what Mexico is in their head, and anything that doesn't fall into that is a lie or
It's unauthentic. Yeah.
inauthentic. Yeah. And I'm like, that's okay. Like, I'm not going to argue with you about that because I don't care what the stranger on the internet thinks.
Sure.
But like, we're like, point to the lie. So yeah, I think that
not everything in Mexico is like, a small village with like Talavera tiles everywhere. And like, there's a lot of modern cities. There's a lot of modern neighborhoods. Again, there's a lot of wealth in Mexico.
Mm-hmm. I think that, so I talk about that frequently, about how the idea that all Americans are rich and all Mexicans are poor.
Mm-hmm.
So any American coming to Mexico is ruining it for every Mexican.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cartoon out of people from both countries. Like, it simplifies them. It flattens Mexico, and it flattens Americans as well. But like, that's just not reality, right? Like, we can make generalizations, but when we point to everybody over here as a perpetrator and everybody over here as a victim, we're not like, we are creating a narrative that is just not reflective of the facts. So, yeah. There are a lot of rich Mexicans. A lot. The very first time I came to Mexico City, I was staying at a motel, which I think was like back then, like $100 a night.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a Ferrari dealership in the lobby. And I was like, this is interesting, right? Like, and like, when I paid for the $100, it was a JW Marriott. So whatever. It's not $100. It's like $600 a night back home. But when I wasn't expecting like, oh,
that level of wealth.
Right. For my very first visit in the city. And before, I think I'd only been to Cancun. So, that's a different, and when I was really young.
Night and day difference. Yeah.
Night and day difference. But there's so much money in this country, and a lot of what a lot of the conversations, especially about gentrification, don't really flatten that, right? They flatten that because, you know, most of us are renting from Mexican landlords,
Mm-hmm.
and that we're not gonna get into that right now. But that is like I struggle with having the gentrification conversation with people who don't acknowledge that, like, there's a very good chance that it's a problem, but there's a very good chance that if a foreigner is a problem, if a foreigner is an identifiable problem, there's also probably a Mexican who is an identifiable part.
100%.
Right? And like some people are like, no, if you weren't here with your money, they wouldn't raise the rents. And I'm like, they're raising the rents based on assumption? Like, anyway. But yes, like it's a both sides issue. It's a yes and issue.
Supply and demand. If there was no demand, yeah, there would be no supply. But also the supply is there because they have seen that they can get the demand.
Mm-hmm.
And so really it's, you know, I have seen this myself firsthand too. Like I'm not saying it doesn't exist. You know, sometimes I have gotten the lesser, better treatment, right, than like a foreigner next to me.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen that as a Mexican. But that doesn't mean I like blame all foreigners. I don't. I think that's just culturally, Mexico has been that way for forever. It's a very classist society.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just common for there to be like favoritism for those who are perceived as having more money.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that's just the thing in Mexico.
Right. And it's the thing in so many places. Like my family's from Jamaica, and like Black people generally aren't treated as good as other people in Jamaica, because the assumption is even if you're a foreigner, you're not as like foreign, right?
Yeah.
And the locals aren't treated as well in like the beach. Like they have beaches that locals can't access, and it's a problem. Like that is a problem that happens when you center others and you center money and make assumptions about who has money. It's not a problem specific to Mexico, and it's not a problem we're gonna fix anytime soon.
Yeah. It's deep rooted into our history, our culture. Hopefully it changes with the newer generations, and you know, having some like a more level-headed approach to not like, you know, treating your own lesser than.
Right. Well, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've talked about where you would live. Okay. Just between me and you, nobody else is going to see this. It's me, it's you. We're talking.
Okay.
What's one thing you hate about life in Mexico?
Only one?
You can start with one. Give me as many as you got.
Only one? Obviously, the bureaucracy is number one. I didn't have to go to the residency visa process, so I can't personally tell you that that's like my frustration, because yada, yada, yada. But I see it day in and day out with people, and the level of frustration, right? And that it could be made a lot easier if, you know, I'm not saying that the US is like, has it better, but I do think that in many ways, like, you know, they have their shit together better in many ways. Sorry if I curse, but
we curse here.
Okay. But you know, just they could make it easier for people. And that includes Mexicans, by the way. That's not only for foreigners. Like if you want to get signed up for the IMSS, which is the Social Security hospital in Mexico, if you are employed by an employer, they are supposed to sign you up. And then therefore, you know, part of your taxes go into this Social Security medical program, which you're able to use like only specific hospitals. But long story short, signing up for that is not easy. Even as a Mexican who might be gainfully employed, who has every right to sign up for the IMSS, the process is not always very straightforward. So as a foreigner, obviously it's going to be even harder because they don't always consider foreigners in their processes. And so sometimes they have to kind of like figure it out on the spot. So the bureaucracy is obviously a frustrating part of daily life. And that's only one example, even finding a rental and the amount of paperwork that you have to gather and the kind of the red tape that you have to go through in order to find a rental, even as a local, is sometimes like, why do they require this much paperwork? But then other than that, I do think that there is a level of, I think it's changing, by the way, but there is a level of acceptance in Mexican culture of like, I have always lived in this level of life, and therefore that's like the card I was dealt. That's the hand I was dealt. And so I see that sometimes people might not try to get out of a certain situation or like improve their certain situation because they've accepted the card they were dealt. It's not like in the United States where like it doesn't matter for a lot of people where you come from, you can still make something of yourself. And for a lot of people, I think it's like ingrained in our culture that like we've accepted that we came from a specific family and therefore that's just our destiny. Or we came from a specific neighborhood and therefore that's our destiny. And I do think that's changing, but I don't love that about the culture. Because if they could only see, right, that there's so much opportunity, they could change that about themselves. And then my personal pet peeve is the way people treat animals. I find that so gross and so terrible sometimes, and not always. Obviously, there's people who love their pets, and there's a lot of really great owners of pets, but there's also a lot of people who are terrible to their animals. I mean, truly terrible. So I hate seeing that. That just like, oh, one thing makes me sad. It's absolutely that.
I've never noticed that here. I noticed a lot of like,
Yeah, it's less common.
Sometimes I see the dog walkers and I'm like, you're just sitting with the dog at this point. But like, I don't know what the requirements are, so whatever. But I see what looks like so many people really caring for their pets. So I'll keep an eye out for that. See if
It's not as common, I think, in the bigger cities.
Mm-hmm.
That's just because it's not easy to have a pet in a bigger city. You really have to make an effort to walk them, and like we're not used to having these big yards and like big green spaces right in our household to like be able to let our dog out unless you're very wealthy and you have a backyard, which is like a common thing in a big city like Mexico City. But you see it more in smaller towns or towns that are more rural, which I have family all over the place, and I see that in many different areas. And I really dislike that. I think it's like a very old school mentality that a dog is a tool. They're there to protect your house and that's it. My dog is my child. So
yeah. Okay. I do want to talk real quick about this comment from Maria Gasca-Reyes, because this is what I was talking about earlier. A lot of times it says, if you're from the US, stay out of Mexico. You treat Mexicans and Latin Americans horribly, stay out. Yeah. This is what I see online. And this might be what you see online. You might see a lot of people, if you're watching this video right now, you may see a lot of people saying like, stay out of Mexico. You don't belong there. You're ruining the country, blah, blah, blah. I only see it online. Maria would not say that to me in Mexico. Maria's probably not in Mexico. I find that a lot of people who are doing this online aren't even in Mexico. If you do a little research, they're not in Mexico, right? And the people that are in Mexico are not, like, even if someone thought this, they're not going to say this to your face, right? They're going to treat you well. They may, now if you're treating them horribly, they may treat you horribly.
Sure.
But if you're not and you're kind, people are, I can probably count on my hand the number of times someone's been unkind to me, and I've lived here for 6 years, right? On one hand. This is the kind of thing, like I said, you will see it online. And so people take it as if that like, this is what every Mexican thinks. No, Mexicans don't want us here. And I'm like, this person might not even be Mexican. They might not be Mexican. They might not be in Mexico. And this is not the experience you're going to have while in the country. So I just wanted to focus in on this because it is a good example of the difference between the online conversation and the lived experience in country.
I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you for calling that out. And yeah, Maria would never, I guarantee you, she would never say that to you out in public, at a market or the hospital or at a grocery store, or, you know, while she rents her property to you.
Yeah. It's interesting because the news I feel like we had this cycle going for a while because the news focused in on the first protest and they were like these riots in Mexico, right? It got ramped up. And I do think it's an important conversation to have, like you said earlier. And I'm really, in my video I did about not moving here, I spoke about my thoughts on the fact that something should have been done about rent control and limits and Airbnbs like 5 years ago, right? And so it's a little late to be having this conversation, but it's still a conversation that change needs to happen, right? Change needs to happen. And so if this is what leads to the change, I'm glad that we're getting there. But yeah, you're not going to experience the nastiness in person. And I don't care what a troll says online. Cause like I said, you could be, your name could be John Smith and you just changed it here to leave this comment. I don't know.
I find that too. And I guarantee you, again, I've interviewed so many people across the country, and not once have they felt, I mean, yes, Mexicans have bad days too, okay? So like if somebody doesn't smile at you, doesn't mean that they automatically hate you. We have bad days too, like we're people. But that doesn't mean that, you know, you're being like treated negatively or that your presence is not welcome. Yeah. And I agree. Somebody said it perfectly. The online trolls are just down the street from you, and in the US, very likely.
Very likely. Because it's like there's so much anger online, and people are just looking for an outlet for it. And it's like, if you spent less time online and more time in real life, you might not be so angry. Just a thought.
Agree. Right? Why aren't some people, you know, out there marching for less, you know, organized crime? Like, let's put the energy into those things that help like the entire population, not just one neighborhood in Mexico City.
Yeah. But hopefully we get something, the country gets something out of it. I do think, now, going back to what you said earlier, I do think that if UMA means that the amount needed is going down to $1,600 a month, something's got it. Like there's got to be some flip somewhere to because it's going to open up the floodgates in a way that a lot of these cities can't handle, right? And so what else is if that's a change that's going to happen, what other changes are going to happen? I still don't think they should be giving 180-day visas.
I agree. Yeah, not always, not by default.
Not by default.
If somebody's like very obviously living in Mexico and just using it as kind of like a loophole.
Yeah, I just now mind you, I am someone who came in and spent my first 6 months here on a tourist visa, right?
Yeah, but okay. You were scouting the area. That's totally
scouted it out, and
even a few times is okay. Like you're not always going to be living here. You know, you're not going to move right away.
Right. But
like the example you gave of the person who's been doing it for 20 years, that's like you're very obviously living in that country.
Just do what you got to do to get legit, or like recognize that when you get to the airport, you may not be given what you want.
Yeah. Don't get disappointed if they, you know, turn you away.
No, this is actually a great question from Protect Privacy. Could you please discuss what must be done to maintain temporary residency, physical presence? I think this is a great question because it's one of the things that sets Mexico apart from so many other countries it's also, I think, one of the reasons we have so many people applying for residency. So take it away, Mariana.
You have no requirements to live in Mexico to remain a resident. Your first year, normally all temporary residents are given their temporary residency for 1 year, unless you obtained a temporary residency by being married to a Mexican national. Usually then you were given a temporary residency for 2 years. So it just depends on how you applied. Most people are probably going in through economic solvency. So you're given a 1 year temporary residency. After that, after you get your residency card, you can go back home and, live your married life. But you do have to be in Mexico again for that renewal. So usually if you're given your residency for 1 year, you have to be in Mexico within usually 330 days, because normally if the process takes, let's just say if the process takes 30 days to complete or 20 days to complete, your residency visa expiration date will be on the date that you started the process. So keep that in mind. It's very important that you look at that date. You don't assume anything. Also, dates in Mexico are formatted differently than they are in the United States. The month and the day are inversed as you would normally have it in the United States. So a lot of people might miss their expiration date because they are looking at the wrong date. But you can start your residency renewal up to 30 days before it expires. And you have to be in Mexico physically to do that. You cannot do it at a Mexican consulate or from abroad. So that's the only time you actually have to come back. And then you can renew for an additional 1 year, for an additional 2 years, or for an additional 3 years. Most people do an additional 3 years because they don't want to have to be renewing every year and go through the process of getting an appointment and filling out the documents, et cetera, et cetera. You want to deal with Mexican bureaucracy as little as possible. So I recommend 3 years. If you're a temporary resident based on getting married to a Mexican national, after 2 years, you can apply for permanent residency. So you actually kind of get an expedited process for that. So the next time you come to Mexico, you can switch that from temporary to permanent. But you don't have to live in Mexico to remain a resident. It's not written anywhere on the Mexican Constitution or laws. That can change at any time, of course, but currently that is the requirement or the non-requirement.
Lenora says some of us can only afford to live there on the 180-day visa. I'm not discounting that. What I'm saying is that there are people who take advantage of that, and that leads to the conversations we're having. It leads to why, as a foreigner, it's getting really hard to rent in Mexico City because a lot of people don't want to rent to foreigners, right? Because some people are coming in, living on their 180-day visa, leaving and not getting 180 days, and now they can't stay, and now they've abandoned this place they've rented, right? So it's I'm not going to call it cheating the system, but you're in a loophole that you're taking advantage of fairly, right? But if you want to live in the country, the loophole you're living on makes things harder for a lot of other people, right? Like it makes it's not the worst thing you could do in the world, but there are, and maybe not you, but other people who are doing it, right? People who are like, I'm here today, gone tomorrow. And I don't care what the rent is because I'm only going to be here for 3 months. These are that make it harder for those of us who live here long term and for the locals.
Yeah, eventually the government will catch on and just put in requirements in place that make it harder for everyone else. So yeah, I also empathize with people who don't qualify for a residency visa right away, or maybe they're just scouting the area. They're not sure if Mexico's right for them. That is okay. Like you should scout the area. It's a big decision to move abroad, and to uproot your life and to, go through even the residency visa process. That's a big decision. So you should scout the area first.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
And find the place. So many people, I've seen it a couple times here, and I think I'll make a video for you to satisfy this. But so many people ask the question, like, what do you like? And then rely on that. And I see it all over the place. And I want you to know that you really have to go out there knowing what you like and get information about the cities. So like the cities that I might be thinking of moving to next are not relevant to you unless your name is Rashida Dow, right? Like unless you've lived I'm a very vibey person. So I chose Mexico City because every time I lived here, every time I stepped foot here, I was like, I absolutely love the energy of being here. I love how I feel here. I love being here. Unless you pick up the exact same vibes I do, it doesn't matter what cities I like.
Totally.
You need to have a strong grasp of what you're looking for when you move abroad, right? And you also need to be, I would say you need to be flexible with the idea that where you start may not be where you end, right? Because you move to a country, a city, or a street and decide this isn't it. Let me move to the next one over, right? Or let me move to completely different.
Definitely. Yeah, there's people who think like, oh, I just want to retire on the beach, right? And then like 3 months in, they're like, I don't like the beach that much.
Or if they're like, which beach do you like? We may not be looking for the same thing from a beach. The other day, someone was asking me about a good beach for surfers. And I'm like, what are the beaches I don't like? Because those would be.
For guys that I don't want to live in.
Right? Like that. I have tried surfing. I know I don't like the water. You have to surf it. You need to surf it. I don't want that water. Right. And so I was like, okay, so Puerto Escondido, like I started naming places.
Yeah.
It's not for me, but like, if you're just looking at the beach, right? These are all even in Mexico, I would say in most places, if there are beaches, there are a ton of different types of beaches. So you need to know what you're looking for when you're looking for places. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely.
I'm thinking it's hard question time. What's the hard question? I know you get asked questions all the time. So I'm like, what haven't you been asked?
Here's a big one. I think I don't know like what age group most people that watch your channel are. I can assume a lot of things, but I don't want to assume. So
we're 50
but healthcare
plus. Healthcare is a big one. They know by now. They know. I tell them all the time. I went to San Pablo Farmacia the other day to the consultorio. And my doctor visit, I told them, was 90 pesos for my doctor visit. Or was it 60?
Yeah.
It's 60 pesos for my doctor visit.
Okay.
You're not like they know that the healthcare here generally is better in almost every other. The private healthcare, even if that is just going to the pharmacy, is better in probably every measurable facet, because I talk about this to them all the time. But now, what would you say about healthcare specifically?
I would agree. Obviously, healthcare is in many ways much better than, I mean, Canada, like where can I even start? I have customers who tell me all the time, like I've been waiting for, a very specific appointment with my specialist for months. And then, a lot of them travel to Mexico just for the convenience of being able to see anybody next week. Whereas they might be, yes, it's free for them to get treated in Canada, but sometimes it might not be worth it for them to wait the 3 months or 4 months or however long, because it's like really, really necessary for them to be seen ASAP. And then for the US, like, I mean, I have all kinds of, problems with the US medical system. But yeah, we can all agree Mexico's medical system in general, right? The private medical system is a million times better in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a misconception is that it's always going to be 100% cheaper, and it's not always the case. Yes, for things like going to a consultorio outside the pharmacy, it's very inexpensive. You don't need insurance to see, that kind of doctor and get a very good, thorough like consultation. And then you have the convenience of having that pharmacy right next door where they can give you a prescription, you get it filled, and you're done, right? Like it's very easy for minor things. For more serious things, a lot of people just assume it's going to be very inexpensive. And then when they get the bill, they get very shocked. They don't have money because they haven't saved up for it. They didn't get private health insurance because, you know, they didn't think they needed it. They would just pay out of pocket. And for some people that works. And, you know, hopefully we can be healthy for as long as we live. I would hope that none of us and none of you watching at home ever get sick. But I do think that you should, at the very least, if you're not going to have private health insurance, that you sign up for IMSS, which is very inexpensive for residents. You can sign up for it voluntarily. Usually employers are the ones that pay for it, but as a temporary or permanent resident, you can sign up for it voluntarily. And the cost is usually less than $1,000 a year. So at the very least, I say you sign up for that. If you cannot afford anything else, so like a more comprehensive private medical care plan. But you do get what you pay for at IMSS. So there are longer wait times. Sometimes they run out of medication. Sometimes they run out of very basic things like, you know, gauze or equipment that they need for everyday care. And usually, you know, nobody speaks English. That's another big thing that people don't realize. So you are kind of getting what you pay for.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to get private insurance and you're going to sign up for IMSS, I would say at the very least have an emergency fund and budget it into your monthly expenses so that if in case you do need to go get private medical care, you can at least cover the initial fees and then pay it off as you go. A lot of hospitals do offer payment plans, but they do normally require a lump sum upfront. So that's my biggest thing on healthcare. There's obviously more information that you can dig into than just the super surface level overview that I just gave you. But yeah, I would say at the very least have like an emergency fund that you budget every month, because I've seen way too many people, unfortunately, like run out of money and they had to move back to the US with family or friends, or they had to start a GoFundMe or whatever because they didn't budget for something. Then they fell, they broke their ankle or they broke their arm, and then, you know, they have a $3,000 medical bill that can really put them out.
Yeah. So I think that's a good point. I always talk about the healthcare generally being cheaper, but like cheaper doesn't mean zero. I think that's something I've also tried to like train my audience to understand, is that like cheaper in general doesn't mean zero. So people are like, I want to, like when I get to like, I want to move to Mexico because it's cheaper. I'm like, wait, like let's talk about what that really means.
Yeah.
Because everything costs something everywhere, right? Like generally there's a cost involved, even if it's a cost of your time. So yes, so a broken arm in America might cost you $15,000 with no insurance. And in Mexico, it might only be $3,000. But if you don't have $3,000, that's a problem, right? Like it's not like there's no healthcare fairy sprinkling it down on you. One thing that I find more expensive, it's not fair. In the US, I had insurance. In Mexico, I do not have insurance. I'm paying out of pocket for everything. And my doctor visits have been cheaper than what I would pay with insurance in the US. My medications, my prescriptions are not. I'm paying more out of pocket than my copay in the US for insurance. So that's one place where even I go to the pharmacy sometimes and I'm like, what are these numbers?
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have insurance. Oh yeah. This is the entire, like something that I used to, a medication that I used to get that was like $900 a month. But because I had insurance, I paid $20 a month. Now I pay like $100 a month for it. So like, it's not 20, but it's also not 900, right? And I have to keep that in mind that like, even though this number is high, I'm paying out of pocket. And so I don't have that copay experience. So,
yeah, but it's significant to you and your budget. Like you're noticing that it is like 5 times more, even if you're not paying the monthly premium of your insurance anymore. And so you're like kind of saving that money. But, you know, most people in the US who are insured are through employment. So if you're going to live in Mexico, usually you're going to have to self-insure, which is another line item on people's budgets that I think a lot of people skip. And you should, at least, if you are going to skip it, that's totally understandable and okay. Like, you have to decide whether, you want to eat or have medical insurance. Like, if that's the deciding factor, that's totally understandable. At least get IMSS. But what I'm trying to say is, like, don't bury your head in the sand and assume that, like, you're never going to need medical care. Hopefully you don't, but be prepared for it if you do.
Okay. As we wrap up, we hadn't covered healthcare before. Is there anything else we haven't covered that you think you want to talk about right now?
There's so much. I mean, safety obviously is something that comes up a lot. Is it safe to live in Mexico? Is it safe to live as a single woman? Is it safe to travel? All those things are, I think, questions I get a lot.
How do you answer that?
How do I answer that? So yes, generally Mexico is very safe. Obviously, there is crime like everywhere else. It's not free of crime. But I also think that if you're only basing your information on what you watch on the media or the news or on television or what you hear from other people, then it's very one-sided. I would say that the most important thing is for people to actually come experience it themselves. Like, I can tell you all day long, like, I felt perfectly safe going to, this city and nothing ever happened to me. But my experience will be very different than yours. So only boots on the ground can really show you and teach you how you feel. And if you feel good, then you will like living there. But if you feel like something's off, then you're never going to enjoy living there, no matter how. For example, I will put Merida on this example. Merida is kind of constantly being noted as like the safest city in Mexico, right? And that also gives people the false impression that they don't need to watch their surroundings or that they don't need to be aware. And that gives you like a false sense of security that, like, there will be no crime ever. And that's not true. Like, there is crime of opportunity still. There's theft. There's, it doesn't mean you just go to sleep and leave your front door unlocked. Like, you got to practice the same common sense than you would anywhere else. And for some people, I've had customers who tell me, like, I didn't like Merida. I didn't think it was particularly like safer than, Querétaro or Puebla or Mexico City or Puerto Vallarta. Like, I think it's just very, it gives people a false sense of security to name these cities. It's like, oh, it's very safe.
Yes.
At the same time, it's not true that you're going to be targeted just because you're an American or you're a Canadian or just because you're a foreigner. Like, the cartel is not as prevalent as people think. And they're certainly not after you and me. It's a lot of turf wars. And unfortunately, sometimes there are innocent victims and bystanders that get caught in that. But it's not as prevalent as you think it would be. Like, it's not. So yeah, that's my thing. So that solo traveling for women, I would say practice the same common sense that you would in your home country. If you're taking an Uber, share your location with somebody, be on the phone with somebody. If you feel uncomfortable being with like a male Uber driver alone as a woman, and I'm not saying this to scare anybody, that the chances that something bad will happen are very low. But if you're going to practice those things in the United States or in Canada or wherever it is that you're watching from, then you should practice the same things in the country that you're traveling by yourself. Have a community that you all like check in on each other. I think that's a good practice to have, regardless of where it is you're traveling. I don't care if you're going to Denmark or if you're going to Mexico. So bad things can happen anywhere. And doesn't mean that Mexico's automatically going to be a bad place.
Yeah. I always say that, like, I don't have cartel business. So like, I've never like innocent bystanders exist everywhere, but like the cartel does not care about me because I don't care about them. Right. There's no like, you hear like, you're going to be kidnapped for like, and I think part of that is not realizing that, like, when I stepped foot in Mexico on Tuesday, I was not one of the 10 richest people in the country. Like, it's not like, that's not, you are not the ideal kidnapping victim, right? Like, you are not the ideal target. There are people with more money and resources than you that are easy, like accessible as well. And I think that's something that people, especially outside of Mexico, who just have like the idea, the like sepia brown, dusty Mexico from old movies in their head. They don't realize that like you said before, there are a lot of rich Mexicans, there are a lot of rich people from other countries, and like American is an ideal, but it's an idea here. But I think American often takes up more space in Americans' heads than in
Yeah.
the locals that we're around in whatever country we're in, right? Like you may identify yourself more as a American, and so maybe you think of yourself as like an identifiable victim or something like that, where they might just be looking at you like, here's a person who does not speak my language. How shall we maneuver this interaction, right? Like, okay, what are we doing, right? Here's a little bit more work for me because this person does not know. They think they know Spanish, but they really don't, right? Like that's probably what's going through someone's brain, not like look at this target right here. So
Yeah. And there's plenty of women who travel solo. Nothing has ever gone wrong or happened to them. And, I just want to empower people to not feel so afraid all the time of living their life. Like it's a perfectly safe country to travel to and travel around in. Just, practice the same common sense that you would. And again, bad things can happen anywhere and can happen in the safest country in the world. And it can happen in the not safest country in the world. So,
so we're gonna get out of here. This is such a small point, but I want to talk about this. Best advice, that Flutter by PNW said, best advice on safety, don't flash a lot of bling. I struggle when people say this.
yeah,
It's like, if you can wear it in Dallas, why do you think you can't wear it in Mexico? Right?
I would agree.
I wear diamonds outside and no
Me
one has
too.
bothered me.
Yeah.
Right?
I wear my diamond jewelry all the time. I think it matters where you are.
Right.
I wouldn't wear it in the metro.
I do sometimes.
Okay.
But like I'm conscious of it. Like I might turn a ring around in the metro, right? I might. But I also am adventurous, right? Like whatever happens, happens. But I also think that like if you're the kind of person that thinks you have things that you can't use in a place you're considering moving to, that might not be the right place for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to not wear my stuff. And I'm not focusing on you, Flutter by PNW. It's just something it's like something that people say all the time about traveling in various places. And I'm like, if I don't feel safe with the things I personally own, I probably don't belong in that space. Right?
Great way to think about it. Yeah.
I have beautiful rings that I've purchased since I've lived here with the idea that I'm going to wear them here because, right? It's bling.
Yeah.
Like
you got to live your life.
you have to know that if you're moving to like if you're traveling, whatever, you don't know the vibes. Okay. When you move to a place, if you can't use the things you have to figure out whether this is a place for you, especially if it's a voluntary move, right? If it's a voluntary move, not. So like Empress Wanwa says, don't know, I look around and blend in with the locals. If they're not blinging, neither will I. I'm not wearing diamonds to go to like the poorest part of town, right?
Yeah, or to go shop at like all the little shops in Centro or like.
Right? Like I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
But the idea that like you could move to a place where you can't wear your things is something that I just don't want that for you, right? And whether it's a fact or whether it's just an idea in your head, if that's the idea in your head that I won't be able to use these things in the place I'm going to, I don't like that. I don't like that for you, right? You should feel free to live your fullest life.
Agree.
If diamonds are part of your fullest life, do it. Right?
Agree.
So,
yeah, I wear my diamonds too. And I yeah, maybe what Empress Wanderlust is trying to say, like, if you go to the beach and nobody's like wearing their, their fanciest diamond jewelry on the beach. Well, yeah, that's we can all agree that maybe, you wouldn't leave it there while you
Right.
go take a swim on the ocean. That would be, obviously making you a target.
Yes.
But yeah, I would wear it to go out to eat. I will wear it on an Uber. I will, I will go shopping with my nice bag. I don't think we need to be afraid of those things. I think there's a big misconception of that too. I also think that you also should not brag about your wealth. That's a big one. And I think a lot of people share way too much information about their income and their personal situation online. You should be really careful about that. Especially in those residency groups. I'm like, why are you sharing how much you have in investments?
I do
not share that.
I have $3 million. And I'm like, that's not relevant. Like I meet the requirements. All you have to say.
Yeah, do you meet them or not?
I meet the requirements is all you have to say.
Yeah.
But I do think that so I was on a CNBC video a while ago, and we talked about how much I had invested. And after it went public, I woke up the next morning in a group I'm in, and someone shared the video, and a man commented, "That's not smart. She's gonna get kidnapped." And I'm like, it's 5 years later, and I haven't. I'm fine, right? But also the idea that our wealth is this American wealth is this foreign, never seen before. Oh my God. And I'm like,
yeah.
You don't understand Mexico. Like, you're saying this is someone who does not understand Mexico, because there's money all around you. There's money. Now, the distribution of the money.
Yeah, there's inequality more than anywhere else.
Right? It may not look the way you want it to look, but you'll see a lot of money just walking down any street in a lot of places.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. What is something, last thing for the audience, what's something you got to say before you get out of here?
Just, if you're going to live in Mexico, I would say embrace it. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Your first year is going to be like, you're drinking from the fire hose. There's so much information thrown at you. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to feel frustrated. What's not okay is to be ugly about it. Or to, try to vent to every person that you meet about how terrible things are. I think that's what people get upset at. But I guarantee you, most of you watching at home are not like that. Especially because you're watching this channel. So I guarantee you most of you watching at home are not like that. So yeah, embrace it for what it is. It's a beautiful country that has so much to return to you if you can take time to learn it and appreciate it. It has a beautiful culture. It has beautiful people. It's not perfect by any means. Things could be obviously done differently, but they're not. So just learn to go with the flow. Your first year will most likely be your most expensive. And as you learn what things actually cost, where to get the best value for things, how to shop around, how to hire services, what's the actual tipping going rate, those kinds of things. As you start to assimilate more and more, you will see that, the following years, your cost of living will likely decrease, or maybe your quality of life will increase based on the same budget you have. But don't be afraid of that, because I see some people say there's no way that you're living on that amount, or that, some of the cost of living examples that we share. And I always remind people, we try to share the real cost of things. And I know there's some people who are reluctant to accept that you can find a $600 a month rental or a $500 a month rental. They do exist. But without going too much on that tangent, I will just say, live your life, be happy. Don't let people bully you into thinking that, you have to do things a certain way. This is your life. So you only live it once. So do whatever makes you happy, and try to be a good foreigner, a good guest in this country. I think those are my biggest advices for people who are watching this and might be thinking Mexico or some other country, right? Yeah, I don't know. What else do you think that I can share?
I think that was great. I think that people watching this got value from it. I'm sure they did. You are, like I said, information and data, that is your thing. And I'm so happy to be here to balance out my good time girl, what I got going on. But
Hard pills to swallow.
Something you said, I am really, really, one of the things, so we didn't talk about this, but one of the things that I didn't realize was going to impact me in my move so much was the change in the exchange rate over the years.
Yeah,
Talked
great
about
topic.
it a lot, so people know, like, what you pay in rent one day may not be what if you're paying in local pesos and earning money elsewhere, may not be what you're earning elsewhere, or what you're paying the next month.
Mhm.
But I'm really not. I need to look for an apartment because of reasons. But I'm really dreading the apartment hunting experience. So much has changed. I've been in the same apartment I've rented since 2020. And so much has changed since then about like the requirements and the costs and all that stuff. And I'm like,
do you really want to move? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I need to move, but I'm like, that's one of the things that I'm hoping a year from now, I'm not like, what did I hate about Mexico? That apartment search, that last apartment search in Mexico City. So yeah, that's my thing right now. It's something that's on my brain that I'm not looking forward to.
Yeah, but I feel for you. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's no fun.
No. On top of you're already busy. Like, it's not like you're just like, you have all the time in the world.
No,
it's like one more thing to add to your
one
list
more
of
thing to add to the list, and one thing that takes up a lot of time. People who hunt for apartments here will tell you a lot of time and patience. But Mariana, on her YouTube channel, which did I just drop the link for? Yes, I just dropped the link for. Interviews people who live all over the country, so you can see their cost of living, you can see what their life is like, you can see the different cities. So get in there and look and see her interviews, subscribe to her channel. You're gonna get a lot of info. And I think we're going to wrap this up right now. But will you promise to come back another time?
Of course, yeah. I need to have you on the channel too. We need to do this.
We will make this happen. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you need to share some of your hard pills to swallow with my audience. I think I'm a little too nice.
I try to make. I don't want people to come and feel like. I don't want people to come and feel like no one ever told me about this, but I know that someone's going to come and do that anyway. The other day, someone said, no one ever talks about the earthquakes here. And I'm like, we talk about earthquakes all the time. Like, what are you talking like in Mexico City? They were like, I had no idea there were earthquakes because no one ever talks about them. And I'm like,
yeah,
we talk about them all the time. Like, you didn't catch that, but that's different than no one talks about them. So I try to talk about the good things and some of the things people won't love so that they understand that, like, yes, living abroad can be nice and exciting, but there's also like, it can be hard. So, yeah.
It can be hard. It's going to be hard. I think the personality has a lot to do with what the perception of whether it's hard or not hard.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to learn to like relax. You got to learn to have a lot of patience, and life moves slower. So you will be forced to slow down.
Yes. Since moving here, I'm always like, what is time?
Yeah.
What is?
It's a nice thing, though.
It is a nice thing. I went on a tour of Central with a guide after living here probably for 3 years or so. Me and my friend Adelia, who's Picky Girl Travels, who may still be here right now. Our tour guide was late and everybody else was a tourist. And they were like, oh my God, what's happening? What's happening? We were like, just chill.
It's cool.
We kept saying like, it's okay. Like,
yeah,
they're not an hour late. They're like 7 minutes late. Time isn't real here. And the guy showed up and he was like, I was on the metro, it stopped. We're like, yeah, like that's just, you get to just learn that everything's going to happen at a time. It just may not be the time you expect.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mariana.
Thank you.
If you're in my YouTube membership, I'm going to set up a Zoom right now for us to get on, and I will see you there probably let's call it in 12 minutes, because I need to eat some food. So that is 1:30 Eastern time. I will see you guys there. Mariana, thank you so much for being my guest today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. That if switching to UMA would change so many things.
Let's all light up our candles.
Right?
Like
And this information came out on Friday.
Yeah, it just came out on Friday, the 25th of July. So
Look at this current information.
let's hope they enforce it. Let's hope
Yeah.
they respect it and they enforce it, and let's hope they do it sooner than later.
Yes.
We'll keep you all updated.
Thank you guys. Subscribe to our channel. You're going to get the information there. Get on our emails, because everybody else, every other expert is using her emails as the basic.
Yeah, I know. What's up with that?
So you might as well get it directly from the source. At
least give us credit.
I was like, you don't.
Just kidding. Just kidding. I know it happens all the time.
It happens. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon. All right, guys. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.